leaning into how we can fundamentally transform lives and make them better has been something I've been personally passionate about.
Honestly, when I started my career, I explored different industries and just clung to manufacturing, probably because it was just cool, which is, a segue into what we're doing today. But it was just cool to me, just seeing a tangible thing created.
What is it about Connecticut that makes you so passionate about this state?
Can I respond with everything?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for the CBI BizCast, powered by Google. I'm Scott Bolio, filling in for Amanda Marlowe. And this week, we're happy to be joined by Stephen Fuller and Jennifer Clement from CLA. Thanks for joining us on the BizCast.
Thanks so much for having us, Scott.
Thanks for having us, Scott. Appreciate it.
And we're fortunate that CLA is partnering with CBIA on a very cool initiative, the coolest thing made in Connecticut. It's a fantastic new competition highlighting all the great manufacturers in Connecticut. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. We'll dive into all the excitement and the buzz around that. But first off, can you just kind of share with our viewers and our listeners a little bit about what CLA is and what you guys do?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Scott. And just before we get started, a quick disclaimer. Any of our remarks today are not intended to be legal advice or financial advice or accounting advice of any kind. We're just here to share ideas.
Sounds great. Yeah. So Jennifer, you're actually you're from CLA's office out in Wisconsin. Can you tell us kind of what your role is and what you do with the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick couple sentences on CLA. So we are the largest in our space for accounting, outsourcing, tax work, assurance work for the mid-market. So it's, unlike other firms that are a bit larger in our space, we really pride ourselves in focusing our attention. We go to market by industry and focusing on the owner-driven organization that's for the mid and lower middle market. We have 130 offices nationwide, and we've got 3 right here in Connecticut. And so, we're really, really excited to bring you a little bit of professional perspective on what's happening, not just across the country in manufacturing and the globe, but also right here in Connecticut.
Excellent.
Yeah, we have offices in Shelton, West Hartford, Marlborough. We actually merged into CLA in 2021. Prior to that, we were a firm called Bloom Shapiro. That was based in New England and Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, and have found the merger to extend our resources and offerings to our clients to extensive availability to them. And me personally, I've been in the manufacturing space for 15 years. I'm in the tax world, but I've been
a big thing for not just manufacturers, but everybody these days.
Absolutely.
I never go anywhere unchaperoned. I always have a smart guy in the room, Scott.
Sounds good. That's good advice. That's just life advice, really.
And I've been leading the manufacturing practice for New England for the past couple of years as well.
I started in industry at the age of 8, back in my granddaddy's manufacturing facility on the shop floor. My first job was writing out the time clocks for those old electromechanical time clocks. Ka-chink, in and out. You got it. And he just in the mid 60s, he designed marine flotation devices. So Connecticut was a nice client of ours. Thank you for helping to put my family through college. And so slow, no wake, swim area, barrier floats by a dam. Those are all my granddaddy's designs.
Okay.
So I grew up in college. Dad wanted to make sure I appreciated going to college, working in the factory in summer. So
that's fantastic. And so manufacturing has just kind of been in the blood
forever.
Blood.
It's been around the dinner table for as long as I can remember.
That's amazing. Stephen, you said you're a Connecticut native, went to school at ECSU, UHart grad. What is it about Connecticut that makes you so passionate about this state?
Can I respond with everything?
Sure.
Yeah. I was born here, raised here, 38 years strong. I love the seasons, the change in the seasons. I love the fact that we have the shoreline. I love the diversity, the proximity to major hubs like Boston and New York, the stability of Connecticut. I think it offers a lot for families, but also the opportunity to have those careers and passions that extend to major markets.
What was it about manufacturing that got you interested? Do you have a similar kind of background, or was it something else?
No, I didn't. Honestly, when I started my career, I explored different industries and just clung to manufacturing, probably because it was just cool, which is, a segue into what we're doing today. But it was just cool to me, just seeing a tangible thing created and seeing those things created in Connecticut just made it more special to me.
When did you realize, or were you surprised when you started working more with manufacturers of just how important an industry it is in Connecticut and how big it was?
Absolutely. The amount of jobs and high paying jobs, I think this best kept secret in that this evolving industry within Connecticut has been there for a number of years. And that just means a lot to, I think, again, having kids and the opportunities of giving my kids a career. It just provides value to that lifestyle.
There's so many opportunities out there these days, and I think we'll get into that in a second too when we start talking about the labor force and some of those challenges. But kind of overall, you've both done a lot of work with manufacturers for years. What kind of challenges are manufacturers facing right now, kind of with the markets and here in Connecticut specifically?
Yeah, great question, Scott. So I'll start kind of from a national perspective and what we're seeing, and welcome Stephen to chime in at any time. The big three that we're seeing is softening of demand. While for the last couple of months the Purchasing Managers Index has been up, we are hearing from our manufacturing client base in the mid-market that demand is starting to soften up a little bit. So as a result, there's been a change in focus. So for a long time, it's been after, COVID and then the post-COVID era was, man, we've got to do everything we can to meet top-line orders and bring in the inventory. But recently, there's really been a seismic shift, and that shift has been on from the top line to the bottom line. So we're seeing a renewed emphasis on profitability and what can we do in the short term to look at our cost structure, to look at inventories are largely burned off now after the COVID era for most, if there are exceptions. But now what can we do to help shore up the bottom line? The second one is labor. And I know you're going to touch on that as well. So it's interesting in urban markets, we are seeing that organizations aren't hiring and taking on as much staff as they historically have. Now in rural markets, different. They're still having trouble finding the staff. So digital strategy, which we'll touch on later, is still key moving forward because that's going to help with top line or bottom line improvements, kind of back to point one, but also with getting more out of our labor, more efficiency out of the labor force that we have. And then really the third, we touched on that already, is inventory. So, largely burned off, but we are seeing a new emphasis on, from a valuation standpoint. So we've got to make sure that our inventories are valued properly because, that bump that we saw in COVID is something that we've got to work through.
Absolutely. In terms of one of the things that we've heard a lot over the last couple of years is, especially for manufacturers, is issues with the supply chain and difficulties, especially during the pandemic and coming out of it, of getting raw materials or getting goods in and at the same time getting goods out. How are you seeing that shift, and where does that stand for you in your perspective now?
What COVID really taught us is that supply chain disruptions are here to stay, and we have to be better prepared for them. Just during COVID, we flipped from just-in-time inventory to just-in-case inventory. Right. And I think that's a legacy that's going to be with us for a while. We're going to be a little bit more cautious and potentially hold a little bit more inventory on the balance sheet. But, this year, we haven't seen some of the craziness that we saw, in years past with ships turning sideways in the Suez. We still have pirates in the Red Sea. We've got bridges that were taken out this past 24 months. So, there will always be supply chain disruption. Weather events are having a major play. And certainly we're expecting a very busy hurricane season. But, overall, I think what we've learned to do is really to shore up strategy and think about who are our top, 80-20 rule, right? Who are the top 20 suppliers that are, we are 80% dependent on to drive profitability for the business, and then focusing like a laser deeper into the supply chain. And we're seeing a whole trend in localizing it as much as possible, which I'm guessing we want to touch on.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we've seen a lot of companies bringing things more back, in-house or nearshoring or reshoring or whatever the term is. Is that something that you think is going to keep continuing?
Yeah, and just thinking about it from, if we look at the economy in Connecticut and which industries are strong here, and we look at what legislation has passed in the past couple of years, which is really driving a lot of the reshoring of our economy. Construction this year is up 20% over where it was last year. And that's being driven by a couple of key pieces of legislation passed over the past couple of years. Between the IIJA, or the Infrastructure Act, and the IRA, the Recovery Act, you look at the timing of both of those, and you can really see that's what's fueling the economy. Why? Strategic sectors need to come home. So, the whole anywhere but China strategy is all about how do we make sure we've got domestic dependence on key industries like pharmaceutical, like vaccines that have for years been produced in Asia. And it would be more efficient to be producing them here and safer for our economy. We saw that happen during COVID.
And how do Connecticut companies kind of position themselves in the best way to, take advantage of what's happening and really kind of thrive and succeed?
Yeah, credits and incentives. Do you want to comment a little bit on that? It's your fastball.
Yes. So, there's a number of opportunities within programs that the Connecticut Office of Manufacturing offers in regards to job retention, job growth, training. And then in regards to tax incentives themselves, there's the R&D tax credit. There's capital investment improvement credits. So there's a number of things that manufacturers specifically can utilize to help with those, especially tax costs.
Is there anything that you think the state can be doing more of or less of to kind of help give manufacturers a better footing or a leg up, or you may just make the road a little bit easier?
No, I think all of those programs have been super helpful. I think it's more about educating the manufacturers about what is out there. And you have some like Paul Lavoie and others that do a great job of that. And I think we just need to continue that education, which includes, advisors as well. And there's so many resources available out there. Again, the Connecticut Manufacturing website is a great resource to look up some of these programs and provide them that value.
Let's turn quickly to, we touched on it a little bit, but the labor force. We've been hearing from manufacturers for years that one of their biggest challenges is, they have all this work to do, but they're having just a hard time finding the qualified workforce to be able to do it. Are you seeing that needle move a little bit? Is there, where does that come from, and kind of how do we get past it and kind of, once and for all solve that challenge?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to be a challenge. Every client that we talk to, it is a challenge, and it's the skilled workers, right? The engineers,
CNC operators, material handlers, welders. It's, really across all sectors.
So it's not only recruiting also, but it's also turned to retaining that talent, right? And there's this generational mind shift of what is important to this newer class of workers. And I think that's extremely important for manufacturers and companies across Connecticut to understand what makes them tick and to work with them to develop programs that retain them.
And part of it too, I think, is changing that perception of what manufacturing is. And,
absolutely.
With CBIA, we've been fortunate enough we have a lot of manufacturers among our membership, and we've been fortunate enough to kind of travel around, and you see, these aren't the factory
the
floors.
Dark, dirty,
they're not,
exactly.
It's that mindset is shifting a little bit of these aren't just jobs, they're careers. And it's not just, standing on an assembly line. These are highly skilled, high tech, flat out cool jobs that are being offered.
I'm so glad you brought up technology, because a younger workforce is going to demand, every corner of their life have the technologies available to empower them, not just with better data to drive decision making, but also to perform everyday work. And, leaving the work that humans don't want to do to machines. They're going to expect it. So as a firm, it's kind of a fun fact, but we brought in our first class of high school interns all across the country. We brought in hundreds of them into our firm to learn a little bit about our profession, about how it's changed over the years, and how most recently we as a firm are investing $500 million into technology to really transform our service delivery model. And most recently purchased a company called Engine B, which will infuse AI into everything we do. So if we look at how we deliver service as well as how we bring that technology to our customers to improve their operations. So we have to rethink it, and the time has come, and we've got to think about how we now transform the lives especially for the younger workforce. Manufacturing, you see the same thing.
And you kind of said the magic word there with AI. I mean, that's kind of the technology. You talk about technology, in one breath is technology. The next thing out of your, that anybody's talking about is AI, and where does it go, and how can it be used in the right way, and what's the future for that? So I guess kind of what are you seeing in terms of AI, and how are manufacturers starting to figure out how to use it to its best ability?
Yeah, I'd love to share 3 examples that we've seen recently that I think really speak to the practicality of AI, because we're hearing a lot of academic discussion about what's possible, but really what we're seeing is AI used in 3 ways. And what's interesting about it is it's used for its predictive power. So first and foremost, we have a client, for example, that's using AI to predict when maintenance events need to happen, so that instead of relying on anecdotal information, we do it this way because Joe's been with us 30 years and we rely on Joe's expertise to determine when to bring a machine down. We have a client that has 30 machines, and so Joe can't be everywhere at once. So we're using data to predict when each of those machines sees degrading performance. And as a result, we can squeeze an addition by looking at all the performance across all the machines, letting a machine do that work for us. We squeezed 15 to 20% additional capacity out of the factory floor. And this is a manufacturer in a very high demand environment for a consumer product. They can sell everything that they can make. Right. And so it was just so cool to say they can now make and sell 15 to 20% more.
To have that efficiency is only going to help the bottom line in the long run.
Absolutely. And, the Joes of the world are super important to us, right? Because it's creating the model based on his working institutional knowledge of being on the shop floor for 30 years. And now we can replicate some of that predictive capability with very sophisticated models that can look at when we need to perform maintenance. A second way that we're seeing it play out is, from a predictive standpoint, is with inventory management. So we can use AI to do demand forecasting of when remember, we're a bit balance sheet heavy with inventory right now, and we can figure out when to trim and when we need a little bit higher safety stocks in order to look at the patterns. And again, things that humans wouldn't necessarily see, right? But machines can see them. So we're looking for predictive modeling to do a better job with inventory. We've got one client that used this type of technology to go from $50 million of inventory down to a rational number of 10, which is where they were pre-COVID. And we use the AI technology to predict and figure out where demand was coming in, going out, and to get them to a more rational level. A third example is, hand over heart, my background on marketing with manufacturing is really on the customer side. So it's predicting where we've got new top line revenue opportunities, what customer sets, what channels, what niches are going to be interesting to us based on patterns that we're seeing across maybe 10 to 12 different databases where manufacturers can collect information. So when we put that in one special data box, we can figure out, all right, these were the drivers of demand 10 years ago. This is from a predictive standpoint where we're going to see the drivers of the demand in the next decade.
Really super important, because that's making the idea of looking forward and kind of being able to, I guess, sort of have that crystal ball as best you possibly can and know what's coming around the corner, because you never know when a bridge is going to go out or a hurricane is going to come through.
Ships are going to turn sideways.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's an interesting side note. And the elephant in the room is, people are always concerned about their job security. And in the way I like to talk about it is think about what happened 20 years ago in accounting when Excel what really became, the tool of choice for accountants, right? Did accountants lose their job? No, we created a whole industry.
Right.
How to use
Yeah.
spreadsheets to drive, measurements of efficiency and performance in business. And, we're still very much dependent on the world of Excel to drive manufacturing. But no accountants were out of jobs because of Excel spreadsheets. And I think that's happening today with AI. Would you agree, Steve?
I would agree. And part of it is, I think manufacturers understand the importance of all of this. Some of it's timing. When do I make that investment? Right. When am I ready for that investment? And what's the opportunity cost if I don't make that investment now? What will I look like in 5 years? And I think that's what we're starting to see is the understanding that it's time. It's time for that shift and to have that investment in the future.
And it really is. And it kind of comes down to having that relationship with, between an advisor and a client or an owner. Can you talk to that of like, how important is it to take that time to understand a company and to understand what their needs are? And, how important is that relationship to kind of help them success and to help them succeed?
Yeah. Our slogan is, to get to know our clients. And in order to get to know our clients, spending time with them, understanding their pain points. And once we have that knowledge, we can educate them on what might help them, what might bring them to their next level of success, and bringing the right resources that are available within CLA and provide them with those sounding boards to just enhance that conversation.
So let's go ahead and turn back to, the exciting stuff here. Not that all of this isn't super exciting and manufacturing all over the places. But we have this fantastic new competition that we're just kicking off, just getting underway. It's the coolest thing made in Connecticut. 16 manufacturers are going head to head in a tournament style competition to find what is the coolest thing in Connecticut. Yes. And voting is actually underway now. Head over to CBIA.com to cast your vote and find out all the things. We're not going to go through the whole list of all the products because I'm sure I will forget one, and I don't want to make sure everybody gets their due. So head over to the website, check out their products, and vote. And the voting will be underway through September, and the winner being announced in October. So we're really excited about it. And we're super excited to have CLA as our partner on the competition. So Stephen, what kind of, what excited you about it and to get CLA involved in it?
Well, what a great way to promote what we do in Connecticut. Not only for ourselves internally, but, for the rest of the nation. I mean, there's some really, really cool stuff that we do. And I think some of the, jet engines, submarines, a lot of people know about those things, but some of the other stuff like, wiffle ball and Pez and, Colt revolver, these are household names that maybe some people don't realize came from.
You don't realize what's actually been being built in your backyard. Jennifer, Wisconsin's had this tournament before. Can you talk about kind of the success that it's had and what it's like?
Yeah, we love the coolest things made in Wisconsin tournament. It is a frenzy each year. It's been going on for about 8 years. Okay. And when we get to the final four, just this past round, we had 60,000 votes. So far, over the 8-year span, we've had over 1 million people voting for these products. So a little bit about what was up at 23. Sure. So everything is cool, submarines and jet engines, but we did have string cheese, of course, being from the dairy state. I got to bring that up, as well as Newski's Applewood smoked bacon. Okay. It's a fabulous product. If you haven't tried it yet, highly recommend it on everything from breakfast all the way through midnight snacks.
It's the meal for everything.
Jolly Good Soda was when the mix. Skee Ball, you mentioned we had some games in Connecticut. My personal favorite, though, was the Aaron's 90th anniversary limited edition snow thrower. Okay. So we do a lot of snow throwing in Wisconsin. And so I was really, really hoping that would take the top spot, but it was beat out by the Bevy bottleless water dispenser that can do this craze about having carbonated, I don't know your grocery store, but you can find now carbonated beverages as well as spirits.
Absolutely,
and just, dozens and dozens of different brands. So this particular water dispenser will do a carbonated. So in your office, you can now have a carbonated drink right on the spot. So pretty cool.
I think some very cool products. I think, Stephen, I think you and I might be a little bit more biased and say, I think like we'll put the Connecticut stuff up against Wisconsin any day. Yeah. Maybe we can.
The Connecticut cool up against the Wisconsin.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're really looking forward to see where the tournament in the competition takes us. And we're very excited to have CLA on board as a partner with it and to help us get the word out. So thanks so much for both of you. So we like to kind of wrap up our episodes by taking a look back. You guys have both worked in the manufacturing space for quite some time, worked with a bunch of different industries. Are there any lessons that you've kind of learned along the way that have helped both your own personal success or that have helped you help others, navigate challenges or find successes, or anything that you've been able to like fall back on? It's like, this is the lesson and this is the piece of advice.
What I find have been the most successful businesses and leaders are those who stay true to themselves, their core values. And if you're honest with yourselves and where you want to go to the future, I just feel like everything else kind of takes care of itself naturally. And so that would be the biggest thing that I've noticed.
So, my dad taught me a lesson early, when I was working the shop floor, and that's, try to do something in your life to make people's lives better. And, part of the joy in working on some of these newer AI technology and digital products is, we're shifting work from the work that people really don't want to do anymore towards, and the young generation, as we talked about, is really expecting it. And so, leaning into how we can fundamentally transform lives and make them better has been something I've been personally passionate about. One of my favorite books recently is Atomic Habits. And are you familiar with that one? It's a great read. And it's, if you can take 5 seconds and shift your thinking and do something for just 2 minutes a day. And you can do that over a few days, that, you can work that into your routine and, really transform the way you think about things. So for example, it took me about 6 months to get into my new exercise routine. Mm-hmm. I started with working out just, twice a week to 3 times a week. I'm up to 6 times a week. And then, putting in each time I did it, I would add a different exercise. And so I could get now to the healthy level that I was hoping of. It took forever. It took for 6 months, 2 years. But, it's working in those habits, leaning into them and just taking 2 minutes out of your day. Likewise, to break a habit, it takes about 3 days. If you can do something that you want to break for 3 consecutive days, then you're pretty much home free. You can keep it up. But it's funny. I just, if you can think about a 1% improvement each day, that can be transformative in helping make lives better.
That's a great way to think about it and make some of the big things a little less daunting.
Absolutely.
That's
break
great.
it down into simple tasks. And reward yourself along the way, too.
That's important, too.
So when I have my salad, I'm going to have my Reese's Peanut Butter Cup.
I like that. Leave it not on the salad, but yeah. So thank you both so much for joining the BizCast. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
for partnering
so
with
much
us.
for having us.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening to this week's BizCast. You can listen, subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review. Let us know if you have ideas for a future episode. And for a full list of episodes, head on over to CBIA.com.